I've picked your team. They're already in the field. Corporations pay well.
All right, so we're catching up with Klei here at PAX East to find out a little bit about a new game that you're doing called Invisible Ink. And while you're not on the dev team per se, I'm sure you know a lot about it.
I do know a bit.
What's the basic concept of the game?
So Invisible Ink is a turn-based tactical stealth game. It's set in kind of a cyberpunk noir universe. And basically, like, you control this team of agents, and you go on like a series of missions where you're infiltrating corporations, and you're stealing their data, you're stealing their money, and you're using those resources to upgrade your team of agents in preparation for sort of this final mission. And it's also procedurally generated levels, and it's also permadeath, so it's a pretty hardcore experience. And in addition to being permadeath, like, if you get spotted by a guard and they shoot you once, that's just it. Like, it's one-hit kills. So you do have to be pretty careful. It's a tactical game, but most tactical games are kind of focused on, like, using your tactics to get into a good position for combat, whereas Invisible Ink is much more focused on using tactics to kind of maneuver around the guards and around the security systems, and you have access to Incognita, which is sort of like a computer that allows you to hack the systems of the building. So you build up these sort of hacking resources that you can use to, like, shut down a security camera that's blocking your path, so you can bypass that without triggering the alarm, because the longer you stay on a level and the more, like, sort of security features that you trip, the alarm goes up and up, and as it goes up, the sort of severity of response that the corporation is sending after you increases. And after a while, it gets pretty desperate. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of things are stacked against you in this game. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely difficult. Like, the first time I played it, I think I didn't make it out of the first level alive. It's definitely tricky. It's a game where you have to be, like, extremely careful about how you're planning and where you're leaving your agents. Make sure that they're in cover between turns. Because, again, like, if they get spotted, that could just be it. That could be your whole mission.
So, in terms of that, sort of, where are you sort of? Are you looking? Is there a progression when you die, or is it more about teaching the player to become a better player? What's the sort of progression there?
Much more the latter. Like, there isn't really. I mean, there are characters that you can unlock, but you're not, like, upgrading a single character between playthroughs. It's you pick your characters for your team at the start of your playthrough, and you upgrade them during the course of that playthrough, but it doesn't really translate to the next playthrough. It's more just like, okay, well, I failed in this way, and now I know that, so I can use that knowledge for the next time that I go, and I'll hopefully avoid that scenario effectively.
So it's like a stealth roguelike, if you will. Yeah. That's a very sort of unique take on that genre. What's the inspiration and sort of what's the vision for it?
Yeah. So something we like to do at Klei is kind of, like, take lessons that we learned from games that we've made in the past. In this case, we took, like, the stealth component of Mark of the Ninja and the sort of procedural component from Don't Starve and kind of mashed them up and kind of looked at it and said, okay, how can we make this work? And because it is randomized, like, the turn-based thing seemed like a really good way to go, because it kind of allows you that extra time to plan and consider. But yeah, like, we really like taking these lessons that we learn and applying them in new contexts, and that's exactly what Invisible Ink is about. And because it's in a new context, we learn new lessons, which we'll be able to carry forward into our further games.
But I gotta say, like, the art style is a little bit different than what we're used to from a Klei game. You have a very sort of particular art style, yeah. And what was the thinking of that, and sort of what did you want to, because obviously it's like it's a futuristic game and that sort of thing, so is that sort of the inspiration for it?
Yeah. So Jeff Agala, who is our creative and art director, he kind of does all of the art direction and sort of defining of what the aesthetics for all of our games are going to be, and we're really interested in kind of marrying the aesthetics of a game to the mechanics, and Invisible Ink is a game where you're controlling these, like, sort of super spies, so it felt appropriate that it would be sort of slick, but also have that sort of, like, film noir mystery, and because you're like slipping into these corporations and infiltrating them, so we wanted to bring in some of that sort of, like, shadowiness from film noir, but also make it like a really interesting, rich world with with a bunch of tech and stuff like that. So we brought in the cyberpunk from that side.
And of course, you also go with sort of a color scheme. You got a color scheme for each of your games, you could say, and it's always something a little bit new.
Yeah. We love to experiment. Like, Klei is a company where we're never really satisfied to do the same thing over and over again. Like I was saying, with taking lessons we learned from our previous games and applying them in new contexts, like we always want to be pushing ourselves. We always want to be moving forward. If we're not challenging ourselves, then we're not happy. So we're always looking for something to kind of a real like hard design problem to churn on, and a new aesthetic to explore, that kind of thing.
So what's the roadmap ahead with Invisible Ink? What's left to do, and when is it coming out?
So it's in early access on Steam right now. We were doing like regular content updates for quite a while, and just recently we announced that we're going to stop doing that so that we can spend a couple months kind of finishing the game up and polishing it up and making it really like clean and as bug free as possible, and kind of adding a final few features, especially like kind of surrounding the narrative of the game. So that's what we're working on right now, and once that's done, which will be in the next couple months probably, that will be when we fully release it. And I don't know that we have any plans for it beyond that, but it kind of depends on the community reaction. Like if it's really popular and people are loving it, like who knows, maybe we will end up adding some additional stuff.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.